Hey everyone, welcome to the Unguarded Hearts Get Unguarded TV. And this week we are on the topic of dating, and more specifically the whole dating process, or aka the dating game.
Should be a good week.
Yeah, definitely a good week. And we are here with obviously our wonderful resident therapist, Amanda Patterson.
Hello again. Welcome to my office.
Yes, this is a beautiful office.
Thank you.
And so we want to talk a little bit about dating and some red flags, which I think a lot of young people and probably even adults, older adults, experience this in the whole dating process. Can you give us some insight or just some advice on dating and red flags in general?
Sure. Yeah, red flags is something that's coming up so much lately in the clients that I see and writing the blog posts. Everybody wants to know about red flags. So, red flags I think can come in a multiple shade of red and then a multiple size. So, there are huge red, big glaring flags. Things like you notice a guy has a tan line around his engagement, where his
wedding ring.
Yeah, wedding ring would be. So I would say that would be, and he's not wearing a ring. He says he's not married.
Wow.
Yet you can tell that it's either recently off or he just took it off for the night. So I think those are things that are in your face that you're going to notice right away. Then there's going to be smaller things, like you might want somebody who exercises. That might be one of your must-haves. And you notice that you're going to the gym and you ask them to go to the gym and they're not interested in going to the gym. Or you ask them where they work out and they kind of give you a runaround answer. Now, most people would say, is that really that important? But I think that's a small red flag. That's something that you take and you file away and you want to follow up on that. You want to see what their level of commitment to their own fitness level is, if that's important to you.
Right, so a red flag can be something that's negative of their characteristic per se that doesn't match well with you, or it can just be something that doesn't probably go well with your personality or even your lifestyle.
Yes.
Okay.
Absolutely. So there are things that you want specifically in your relationship, and there are things that I think most people would say are red flags.
Okay.
So being an addict would be a red flag. Somebody who steals.
Okay.
Somebody who is chronically unemployed.
Okay.
I think most of the people who are reading the website, Getting Unguarded, know those ones.
Right.
I think what people are probably more interested in is what I call the pink flags, or the smaller shades of what a red flag would look like.
Okay. I understand that. It makes sense. Definitely makes a lot of sense. So I was thinking I could maybe share a story with you.
Okay.
Of somebody I used to date, and maybe you can point out some of the red flags or possibly address some of the red flags that I thought were kind of screaming at me, and we go from there.
That sounds great. Yeah. I think what is going to be important is looking for red flags and then making decisions based on what the red flags say.
Okay.
That's where I think a lot of people get stuck, is it's like, I really like this guy. He's awesome. He's this, and this. We get along this, and this. We've done this, and this. And then this red flag comes, and then it's like, you have to make a decision what you want to do with that red flag.
Yeah, and you're frozen, right, kind of, and you continue to move along in the relationship and don't really listen to them sometimes. And then something happens that just hits you in your face. You finally make the decision and say, I kind of knew this all along.
Yes, that's exactly what happens. It's like hindsight, they say, is 20/20, and I think that with red flags, this is definitely an area where it is 20/20. So it's going to be important to check in on a regular basis when you are dating to see what your intuition is telling you.
Yeah, well, that was the case with this gentleman. I had met him, and the first date, definitely attracted. We had great conversation. I did feel like he was speaking a lot over me, and the types of things he was talking about were still pretty recent maybe in his life. Like, for example, he did talk about his ex-girlfriend And I always felt funny that if somebody talks about an ex-girlfriend on the first date, that's kind of a red flag. He also mentioned her by name. So in my head I was like, whoa, well, he's mentioning her by name. You know, that's kind of weird, but I let it go.
I was going to say, what did you do with that information?
Well, I let it go because obviously with dating, I was interested in him, and I just decided to continue forward and see what would happen. And the thing with him, as I moved forward in the relationship, he would do these romantic things. He had cooked dinner for me. I have a dog. He had bought presents for me and my dog and done very thoughtful type of things. I do think he went from 0 to 60 very quickly. He was writing me all the time, texting me all the time, and while I think that's great, I don't know if that's another maybe red flag in terms of, you know, not keeping some things kind of not private, but not being so rushed to move forward maybe.
So I think 0 to 60 in a relationship, especially in the beginning stages, is a red flag.
Okay.
If somebody's consistently texting you on a regular basis, it's great. But if they're going overboard, we all know that point of this is nice versus this is a step above what I want. This is a step above what I'm comfortable with.
Yeah.
So I think that 0 to 60 is another red flag that was there for the two of you.
So just for our audience, the ex-girlfriend, the names,
Yes.
even calling her by first name.
First name, I would say, is going to be a bigger red flag. I think sometimes if people are still harboring some feelings about their last relationship or are not quite unresolved, or it's their first couple of dates after a relationship, they might bring up, oh, I was dating somebody and it didn't work out. I think that's a common question a lot of people ask, especially in the beginning parts of a relationship, is when was the last time you dated somebody?
Right.
I think when they open with that, that's a different conversation than, hey, I broke up with my ex-girlfriend and her name is Susie and I'm really sad about it. That's
Right.
a very different than, who was the last person you dated and how did it end and what are you looking for? What did you learn from the relationship?
Right, those are just questions probably to get to know you and,
Yes.
and kind of how you think and your relationships and so forth. So okay, just to point out again,
Okay.
the name of the ex.
Yes.
And obviously if they're texting or calling to a point where you think it's a little obsessive, probably something to take a look at as well.
I think what that really speaks to is their unresolved needs that are not being met.
Yeah.
And they're looking to you already
Right.
to meet their needs.
Right.
So that's going to be a red flag because then you're going to be getting yourself into a potential relationship with somebody who is not able to meet their own needs. And is that the kind of relationship that you want? Do you want to be meeting somebody else's needs at all time? Or are you wanting to compromise and work to meet your own needs and their needs and have a partnership?
Okay, good point. Well, I still continued.
Okay.
Those were 2 red flags, and I continued. And as the relationship went on, again, there was a time that I had a girlfriend visiting, and I wanted him to meet my girlfriend who was in town, one of my best girlfriends, and he had kickball that night, and I was in his neighborhood, and sure enough, he kind of brushed it off in that, well, I don't know if I'm going to be able to make it, just call me when you're done with dinner and I'll try and meet up with you. And sure enough, as I was texting or calling, no response, never heard back from him until 12:30, and his response was, oh, my phone died. And that was pretty much the beginning of the end of that relationship because I obviously knew that was a red flag, even more so in my face. And then he finally decided to not go on a date with me and told me that he had bacterial meningitis, which was a very severe disease. Yes, exactly. And
so I'm sure your empathy meter went up. You're probably thinking, oh my gosh, he's sick. I have to, be nice to him or follow up with him or, some kind of response for you because that's a pretty serious thing he told you.
Yeah, and I did do that at first, but in my heart, but I didn't believe it. I was at that point I was livid that it just kind of, once he did not come out to dinner with my girlfriend within those couple of days, this behavior just continued of him from contacting me every day to not calling me to not meeting up to now canceling and telling me he had an extreme illness. I played along for the beginning part of the text message, and then I finally just called him out and said, I'm sorry, I don't believe you. And this, a friend of mine, one had it, two was a doctor, which was true. And I said, you would be in the hospital, and he told me he wasn't. So at that point, the relationship was over. I did not continue. He tried to prove himself or say that he really hung on to this lie. And I even gave him the opportunity to say he had the wrong illness, and he didn't. So the red flags just got bigger and bigger and brighter.
One thing that I have learned, and that I often tell people, is that if a guy is interested in you, he will make a priority to see you.
Right.
He will ask you out on Tuesday for Friday. He'll make sure that you are available on Friday,
right.
that he's giving you enough time, and that you are not going to make plans with your friends or do other things. He wants to be a priority in your life. Mm-hmm. So he's going to do what it takes to become a priority in your life when he is interested in you. Okay. So when a guy is not answering the phone, so it's interesting with this guy because he started off so strong, from 0 to 60, and then it's like the engine cut off. Mm-hmm. So then he goes ghost. This is the new new term, like going ghost. And it's so easy nowadays to quote unquote go ghost because you just stop responding to text messages. You don't ever have to see him. You probably don't have any mutual friends. Right. So it's so easy to have dated somebody, gone out with them, and never see them again.
Yes.
So that's a red flag. If a guy wants to see you, he's going to be making plans.
Right.
That morning, he's going to text you, I can't wait to see you tonight.
Right. Yeah, definitely. So, obviously, I had a lot of red flags in this situation. We've talked a little bit about really listening to them when you kind of feel that they're happening. What other takeaways can we give to other people in these types of dating situations moving forward so that they can maybe learn from this situation?
What I was thinking about is what we opened with about making a decision. It was, you only made a decision at the very last minute when it was about bacterial meningitis.
Yes, that's correct.
So there's a part of you that isn't making decisions in relationships. You're not being the second half of the relationship. Even if it's a new relationship, a new situation, a new, dating, you're taking a more passive role, it sounds like, and allowing them to make the decisions whether or not you're going to, yes, you followed up to hang out with a friend, but you really allowed him to make the decision as to when it began, when it ended, and how it was going to end. He sort of, proverbially backed you up into a corner and didn't give you any choice but to say, this is done. Mm-hmm. Bacterial meningitis, saying that you have bacterial meningitis is pretty desperate thing for him to have said. Yes, that's a pretty it's a very extreme response. So he had his own red flags going on. But for you and for our readers, it's about making a decision. Do you want to be with somebody who didn't make it a priority to see your friend? Mm-hmm. Do you want somebody who goes from 0 to 60 right away? Right. What is your level of comfort in the beginning of a relationship? What were your needs? What were your wants?
And that's such a good thing to say because I feel like a lot of people, not a lot of people, but they do wait for the other person to make the decision of how the relationship is going to end. And it's really being proactive and knowing yourself enough to say, I feel this red flag and I'm going to act on it now. And I think because dating is so common, it's very difficult to find somebody. People give the benefit of the doubt when ultimately that initial red flag, you should have taken action right then and there.
And it's funny that you just used the term, it's difficult to find people when dating. Mm-hmm. And I could imagine that would be something for you that's blocking you from finding somebody. Because if you believe that it's difficult, it will continue to be difficult for you.
Gotcha.
So if you were to change your perspective and say, dating is easy for me, I haven't found the person yet, but he's out there. He's behind door number 2. I've just been at door number 1. Removing that block for you. Because if you continue to say it's difficult, you will continue to get red flags.
I'm living proof that you have to change what comes out of your mouth, and it's a work in progress. So, yeah, well, you provided a lot of wonderful and amazing insight for myself. Thank you. And
you're welcome.
I'm sure everybody else watching. So, again, thank you to Amanda Patterson
Thank you. This is great. Thank you so much,
yes,
everyone.
thank you. And please feel free to continue to follow Get Unguarded TV and go to www.theunguardedheart.com.